Today's Breakfast Bible Byte comes from Psalm 71 and is perhaps a funeral song or a dirge. We will begin with an introduction. It is impossible to determine on what occasion this psalm was composed because it has no title, although the psalm appears to be a funeral song or a dirge, for it is a psalm of reflection of an elder person. Some have called this the prayer of the aged believer, suggesting that it is about those who are mature in their faith, as demonstrated by their confidence, fortified by lifelong experience. The psalmist, possibly David, would have been an old man when he composed this. The reflections and recollections from the life of the author have been one of testing, according to verse 20. Therefore, the psalm is one of great value, describing the feelings of a good man when he is growing old. In that experience, the penitent anticipates God's intervention and mercy in every situation, and therefore, in an appropriate response, promises to magnify the Lord. The psalm divides into 5 sets of 4 verses. In the first 4, a prayer of deliverance from troubles and unjustified affliction from the wicked. The second is a set of 4 is a grateful review of divine mercies manifested from his earliest years of life. In the next, the man of God pleads against his foes and then rejoices in hope. Then in 14 through 18, he reverts to a prayer of praise, again repeating the confident hope and optimism of his soul. In the final verses, 19 through 21, the promises seem to abound in thanksgiving, offering an expression of confident expectation that God would hear his prayers and be merciful to him. This psalm in its entirety may most easily be regarded as an utterance of a struggling yet resolute faith. Verse 1 of 71, In you, O Lord, I have taken refuge. Let me never be ashamed. Perhaps the psalmist, if David, is adding to a statement of deliverance that was already presented in Psalm 22, 4 through 5, focusing on the experience of his ancestors. It reads, Our ancestors trusted in you, and you rescued them. They cried out to you and were saved. They trusted in you and were never disgraced. O Lord, I take my refuge in you. Help me in my weak faith to trust you wholeheartedly, regardless of the situation, so that you alone are always glorified, and I may never be ashamed or in confusion, always able and ready to give an answer for the faith that is within me. The psalmist realized that sin has a penalty, and a breach of the law is sin. New Testament Christians, on the other hand, must keep in mind that while the penalty of the law has been paid in full by our Lord Jesus Christ, God still expects our obedience to the principles stated in his law. For those who have never accepted Christ and as God's free gift, the propitiation of Christ, that's an acceptable sacrifice of Christ, they continue to remain under the penalty and dictates of the law to this day. God's Spirit, through Paul's pen, states that the penalty for any breach of the law is death. He says, the wages of sin is death. This is also codified through the prophet Ezekiel in 18:4. Behold, all souls are mine. The soul of the Father as well as the soul of the Son is mine. The soul who sins will die. The psalmist apparently remembers those times when he was in dire affliction, and even then, when he appealed to the mercy and loving kindness of God, he found refuge in him. Jehovah, the Lord, deserves our confidence. Day by day we must be on our guard against any form of complete reliance upon the attributes of our old nature. God knows our faith, yet he loves to hear us affirm it.